What if the life you're living right now is simply a reflection of the thoughts you've been feeding your mind every day? What if success, failure, confidence, fear, growth, or struggle all begin with one invisible force? Your thinking. Before results appear in your hands, they appear in your mind. Every achievement, every invention, every breakthrough started as a thought someone refused to ignore. Because whether you realize it or not, you are becoming your dominant thoughts. Let's break this into 7 powerful truths. Your mind quietly determines the direction your life moves in, often without you even realizing it. Every day, from the moment you wake up, your thoughts begin setting a course. If your mind is filled with worries, doubts, and fears, your energy naturally follows that path. You hesitate, second-guess yourself, and opportunities slip by because your focus is on what might go wrong. But when your thinking shifts toward growth, possibility, and solutions, something powerful happens. You start noticing chances where others see obstacles. You become more willing to act, learn, and adapt. The direction of your thinking becomes the direction of your progress. Think about how a compass works. It does not move the traveler, it simply points the way. In the same way, your thoughts guide your decisions, and your decisions guide your life. If someone constantly thinks about failure, their choices become cautious and limited. They avoid risks, settle for less, and convince themselves that safety is success. Over time, their life reflects those small decisions. On the other hand, someone who thinks about improvement and possibility begins making braver choices. They pursue learning, connect with new people, and try again after setbacks. Step by step, their life moves toward growth because their mental compass is pointing there. What makes this even more powerful is that your mind filters reality based on what you think about most. If you focus on problems, your brain becomes skilled at finding more problems. If you focus on solutions, your brain searches for ways forward. 2 people can stand in the same situation, yet one sees opportunity while the other sees difficulty simply because their mental direction is different. Your mind is constantly asking, what should I look for? And whatever answer you give repeatedly becomes your reality. Many people wait for external change before adjusting their mindset, but the truth is that internal direction usually comes first. The student who thinks about becoming better begins studying differently. The entrepreneur who thinks about growth starts spotting new ideas. The athlete who focuses on improvement trains with more intention. Direction shapes effort, and effort shapes results. The encouraging truth is that direction is not fixed. At any moment, you can shift what occupies your mind. You can start asking better questions, focusing on possibilities, and feeding your thoughts with purpose rather than fear. Over time, even small mental shifts lead to noticeable changes in behavior, confidence, and results. And when someone looks back at their progress years later, they often realize the journey changed the moment their thinking changed direction. Every belief you carry about yourself and the world began as a simple thought repeated over time. No one is born believing they are capable or incapable, confident or insecure, successful or unsuccessful. These ideas are formed gradually, shaped by experiences, words from others, and most importantly, the thoughts you tell yourself daily. When a thought repeats often enough, the mind stops questioning it and begins accepting it as truth. Over time, that truth becomes a belief, and beliefs quietly influence nearly every decision you make. Consider how often people say things like, "I'm just not good at this," or "things never work out for me." At first, these may have been reactions to temporary setbacks or failures. But when those statements are repeated again and again, the mind begins to accept them as reality. Once a belief forms, behavior starts aligning with it. A person who believes they are bad at something stops trying, avoids challenges, and feels uncomfortable, stepping outside their comfort zone. Eventually, their lack of progress seems to confirm the belief, creating a cycle that becomes difficult to break. The opposite is equally powerful. When someone repeatedly tells themselves that they can learn, grow, and improve, their belief system begins to shift. Instead of seeing failure as proof of weakness, they see it as feedback. Instead of avoiding challenges, they become curious about what they can gain from them. Small efforts begin to build confidence, and confidence strengthens belief. Over time, this positive belief system leads to consistent action and improvement. What makes beliefs so powerful is that they operate in the background of the mind. You rarely question them because they feel like facts. They shape how you interpret events, how you respond to obstacles, and how much effort you invest in opportunities. 2 people can experience the same setback, yet one sees it as temporary while the other sees it as confirmation that success is impossible. The difference lies not in ability, but in belief. Beliefs also influence how you see yourself in relation to others. If you constantly think others are better, smarter, or luckier, you begin to shrink your own potential. But if you start thinking that success is something anyone can work toward, including you, your actions begin to change. You speak with more confidence, seek new opportunities, and become willing to learn from those ahead of you instead of feeling intimidated by them. The powerful realization is that beliefs are not permanent. Since they are built from repeated thoughts, they can also be rebuilt by changing those thoughts. When you begin consciously replacing limiting ideas with empowering ones, your internal narrative shifts. With time and repetition, new beliefs form, opening doors that once seemed permanently closed. Every action a person takes is influenced by what they believe about themselves and their chances of success. While people often think action is driven purely by motivation or discipline, the truth is much deeper. Belief acts as the engine behind behavior. When someone truly believes they are capable of achieving something, they naturally take steps toward it. When they doubt themselves, hesitation and avoidance quietly replace action. This process happens so subtly that many people never realize their beliefs are controlling their behavior. Think about how two individuals might face the same opportunity. One person steps forward confidently, willing to try even if success is not guaranteed. The other hesitates, overthinks, and sometimes withdraws completely. The difference often lies not in skill or intelligence, but in belief. The first person believes effort can lead to improvement and success, so action feels worthwhile. The second person believes failure is likely or that they are not good enough, so action feels risky and uncomfortable. As a result, they do less, and their lack of action produces fewer results, reinforcing their original belief. Beliefs also influence how persistent someone becomes when facing obstacles. A person who believes growth is possible treats setbacks as part of the journey. They learn, adjust, and try again. But someone who believes failure defines them often gives up quickly. They see challenges as proof that they should stop, rather than as signals to improve. Over time, persistence creates skill, experience, and confidence, while quitting early prevents progress. Again, the root cause is belief, not ability. Another important aspect is how belief shapes preparation and effort. When people believe an opportunity is worth pursuing, they prepare seriously. They practice, research, and invest time into improvement. But when belief is weak, preparation feels pointless, so effort remains minimal. Later, when results are poor, it seems like fate or luck is to blame, even though the true cause was lack of belief leading to lack of effort. Beliefs also affect body language, tone of voice, and overall presence. Someone who believes in themselves walks into situations with more confidence, communicates clearly, and appears more trustworthy. Others respond positively to this energy, creating better opportunities and stronger relationships. On the other hand, doubt often shows through nervous behavior or hesitation, which can cause missed chances even when talent is present. What makes this cycle powerful is that actions create outcomes, and outcomes strengthen beliefs. Successful actions build stronger belief, leading to even greater action. Meanwhile, avoided opportunities or failed attempts caused by doubt reinforce limiting beliefs. Recognizing this connection allows a person to see that improving actions often begins by improving belief. When belief shifts toward possibility and growth, actions naturally follow, opening paths that once seemed unreachable. The environment you live and operate in often appears to be shaped by circumstances, luck, or external factors, but in many ways it reflects your patterns of thinking. The people you spend time with, the habits you develop, the opportunities you notice, and even the lifestyle you accept are closely connected to what you consistently think about and believe you deserve or can achieve. Your mindset influences the choices you make, and those choices gradually build the environment around you. When someone constantly thinks in terms of limitation, scarcity, or fear, they tend to stay in situations that feel safe but restrictive. They may remain in circles where ambition is low, avoid new experiences, or settle for routines that offer comfort rather than growth. Over time, this creates an environment that reinforces the same limited thinking. Conversations revolve around problems rather than possibilities, and ambition slowly fades because the surroundings do not encourage change. The environment becomes an echo of the mindset that created it. On the other hand, when a person begins thinking about growth, improvement, and opportunity, their choices start to change. They seek conversations that inspire them, pursue environments where learning is possible, and distance themselves from influences that pull them backward. This shift does not always happen instantly, but gradually their surroundings begin to match their new direction. They might join communities focused on development, pursue better career opportunities, or build routines that support their goals. The environment evolves because the thinking behind daily decisions evolves. Another important aspect is how thinking affects what you notice around you. Opportunities often exist in the same spaces where others see only obstacles. A person focused on growth notices chances to learn, collaborate, or advance even in ordinary situations. Meanwhile, someone focused on limitations sees reasons why things cannot work. The difference lies not in the environment itself, but in how the mind interprets it. Over time, this perception influences which opportunities are taken and which are ignored, shaping the future environment accordingly. Relationships are also shaped by mindset. People naturally gravitate toward those who share similar attitudes and energy. If someone constantly complains or expects failure, they tend to attract others with similar perspectives. But when someone speaks about goals, progress, and solutions, they often attract people who think in the same constructive way. These relationships then provide support, encouragement, and opportunities that further reinforce growth. Habits also play a role in shaping the environment. Thinking focused on improvement encourages habits like reading, exercising, learning new skills, or managing time wisely. These habits create better results, which then lead to improved surroundings and opportunities. Slowly, the environment becomes one that supports success rather than limitation. What many people do not realize is that changing surroundings often begins with changing internal thinking. When the mindset shifts toward possibility, choices begin to change, and those choices reshape the environment step by step. Over time, the outer world starts reflecting the inner transformation, proving that growth inside eventually creates growth outside. Fear often feels like an unavoidable reaction to danger or uncertainty, but in many situations, it is actually the result of repeated thought patterns. The mind has a powerful imagination, and when that imagination constantly focuses on negative outcomes, fear begins to feel real even when no immediate threat exists. People imagine failure, rejection, embarrassment, or loss so vividly that their bodies react as if those events are already happening. Over time, this habit of imagining worst-case scenarios becomes automatic, shaping decisions and limiting actions. Many fears are built not from actual experiences, but from repeated mental rehearsals of what could go wrong. A person might hesitate to speak in public, not because they have failed before, but because they repeatedly picture themselves being judged or making mistakes. Someone might avoid pursuing a business idea because they constantly imagine losing money or being criticized. These thoughts create emotional discomfort, and the mind learns to avoid situations that trigger that discomfort. Eventually, fear becomes less about real danger and more about mental habit. What makes fear powerful is that the brain often cannot distinguish between vividly imagined scenarios and real experiences. When negative outcomes are repeatedly imagined, stress and anxiety follow, making avoidance feel like the safest choice. But avoidance reinforces fear. Each time a person backs away from an opportunity because of imagined consequences, the mind learns that fear was justified. This strengthens the pattern, making future challenges seem even more intimidating. However, imagination can work in the opposite direction. When people consciously imagine success, progress, or growth, their emotional response changes. Instead of seeing only risk, they begin to see possibility. Confidence increases when the mind repeatedly visualizes improvement rather than failure. Athletes, performers, and successful leaders often use positive mental rehearsal to prepare themselves. By imagining successful outcomes, they train their minds to feel familiar with success, reducing fear when the real moment arrives. Fear also shrinks when individuals start questioning their automatic thoughts. Instead of accepting every fearful scenario as truth, they begin asking whether the fear is based on facts or assumptions. Often they discover that the risks are smaller than imagined, or that failure would not be as devastating as they feared. This awareness weakens fear's control and encourages action despite uncertainty. Another important aspect is understanding that fear is often a signal of growth. Situations that feel uncomfortable usually represent opportunities to develop new skills or confidence. When people learn to interpret fear as a sign they are stepping beyond their comfort zone rather than as a warning to stop, their relationship with fear changes. Instead of running from it, they start moving through it. Over time, repeated action in the presence of fear reduces its intensity. The mind learns that challenges can be handled and that imagined disasters rarely occur. Gradually, confidence replaces hesitation, and fear loses the control it once held over decisions and opportunities. A person's identity is not formed overnight, nor is it fixed from birth. It develops slowly through repeated thoughts and behaviors that eventually become part of how someone sees themselves. Every time a person tells themselves a certain story about who they are, that story begins shaping their identity. When thoughts are repeated often enough, they influence actions, and repeated actions solidify a sense of self. Over time, people begin acting consistently with the identity they have created in their minds, often without realizing how it formed. Consider how someone begins to see themselves as disciplined or undisciplined. At first, it might start with small thoughts, such as, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I always finish what I start." These thoughts guide small decisions each day. When someone repeatedly delays tasks, avoids effort, or gives up quickly, they begin thinking of themselves as lazy or unmotivated. Eventually, this becomes their identity. Once a person labels themselves this way, their behavior starts matching the label automatically. They stop expecting discipline from themselves because they no longer see it as part of who they are. The opposite pattern also works. When someone starts thinking of themselves as committed, hardworking, or focused, even in small situations, their behavior begins aligning with those thoughts. They start finishing tasks, managing time better, and keeping promises to themselves. Each small success strengthens the identity they're building. Over time, discipline becomes natural rather than forced, because it now matches how they see themselves. Identity also affects how people respond to challenges. Someone who sees themselves as resilient tends to face difficulties with determination. They may struggle, but they do not quit easily, because quitting does not match their self-image. On the other hand, someone who identifies as unlucky or incapable may give up quickly, believing setbacks are simply proof of their limitations. In both cases, actions follow identity, not just circumstances. Another powerful factor is how identity influences long-term habits. People often fail to maintain new habits because those habits conflict with how they see themselves. For example, if someone tries to adopt healthy routines but still believes they are not a healthy person, their old habits eventually return. Lasting change happens when thinking shifts first, allowing habits to support a new identity rather than fight against the old one. Social interactions also reinforce identity. People tend to behave in ways that match how they want others to see them or how they believe others already see them. If someone is known as reliable, they work hard to maintain that image. If they are seen as careless, they may unconsciously continue behaving that way. Over time, external perceptions and internal beliefs combine to strengthen identity further. The encouraging reality is that identity can change through consistent thought and action. When individuals begin consciously thinking differently about themselves and taking small actions that support those thoughts, a new identity slowly forms. Step by step, the person they once believed they were is replaced by the person they repeatedly choose to become. One of the most empowering realizations a person can have is understanding that thoughts are not commands that must be obeyed. Many people grow up believing that whatever appears in their mind automatically defines them or predicts their future. Negative thoughts, doubts, and worries seem to arrive without permission, and over time, people begin to feel controlled by them. However, there is an important distinction. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing and choosing which thoughts deserve attention and which should be ignored or replaced. The human mind produces thousands of thoughts every day, many of them shaped by past experiences, fears, and outside influences. Some thoughts are useful, but many are repetitive or unhelpful. If someone automatically accepts every negative idea, it becomes easy to feel stuck or discouraged. For example, a thought like, "I'm not ready," or I'll probably fail, can appear in anyone's mind. The difference between those who move forward and those who remain stuck is not the absence of negative thoughts, but the ability to challenge and redirect them. Choosing thoughts does not mean pretending problems do not exist or forcing artificial positivity. Instead, it means consciously guiding the mind toward constructive thinking. When doubt appears, a person can pause and ask whether the thought is helpful or simply a habit formed from past experiences. Instead of accepting it as truth, they can replace it with a more empowering perspective, such as focusing on learning, preparation, or gradual improvement. This small mental shift often changes emotional reactions and leads to better decisions. Training the mind is similar to training a muscle. At first, changing thought patterns feels difficult because the brain prefers familiar routines, even when they are negative. But with consistent effort, new mental habits develop. Each time someone interrupts a destructive thought and replaces it with a productive one, they strengthen their ability to control their thinking. Over time, positive thinking becomes more natural, and negative patterns lose their influence. Another important aspect of choosing thoughts is controlling the information and influences that enter the mind. Conversations, media, and social environments all contribute to thinking patterns. When someone surrounds themselves with constant negativity, fear, or criticism, it becomes harder to maintain constructive thinking. On the other hand, exposure to positive ideas, inspiring conversations, and educational content supports healthier mental patterns. Choosing thoughts, therefore, includes choosing influences wisely. Self-awareness also plays a key role. Many people run on mental autopilot, reacting emotionally without noticing their thinking patterns. When someone becomes more aware of their inner dialogue, they gain the ability to step back and decide how to respond rather than reacting automatically. This awareness creates space between thought and action, allowing better choices. With practice, choosing thoughts becomes a powerful skill that influences confidence, decisions, and long-term direction. Instead of being carried by fear or doubt, individuals begin steering their mindset toward growth, possibility, and solutions. Over time, this mental discipline shapes behavior and results, proving that while thoughts may appear automatically, the power to guide them always remains in the hands of the thinker. In the end, everything we have explored comes back to one simple but life-changing truth. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of your thinking. Your thoughts quietly influence your direction, shape your beliefs, drive your actions, and eventually build the identity you live with every day. Many people try to change their circumstances without first changing their mindset, but lasting transformation always begins within. When your thinking shifts toward growth, possibility, and purpose, your decisions begin to change, and with them, your results. Life does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes intentional, and intentional living leads to progress. We also realize that fear, doubt, and limitation often grow from unchecked thought patterns rather than real barriers. When we repeatedly imagine failure, we unknowingly train ourselves to avoid opportunities. But when we begin to imagine improvement, courage, and success, we create space for action. The environment we live in, the people around us, and the opportunities we experience often mirror what we consistently think and believe about ourselves. Change does not arrive overnight, yet each positive thought and purposeful action slowly reshapes the future, proving that transformation is built step by step. Another powerful lesson is that identity is not permanent. It is something we construct through repeated thinking and behavior. The person you believe yourself to be influences how you act, what risks you take, and how persistent you become in difficult moments. When you consciously choose thoughts that support growth and possibility, you begin building a stronger identity, one based on discipline, resilience, and confidence. Over time, this new identity guides better habits and decisions, leading to results that once felt out of reach. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable simply because your mindset no longer limits your potential. Ultimately, the power lies in recognizing that you are not controlled by your thoughts. You have the ability to guide them. Every day presents a choice to focus on limitation or opportunity, fear or growth, doubt or belief. When you take responsibility for your thinking, you take responsibility for your future. And as your thoughts evolve, so does your life. The journey towards success, fulfillment, and personal transformation begins in the mind. Because in the end, the truth remains clear and powerful. You become what you consistently think about. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Your support, attention, and commitment to personal growth mean everything. Remember, real change begins the moment you decide to think differently and take action toward a better version of yourself. If this message inspired you, make sure to share it with someone who needs motivation today. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving forward. No matter how small the steps may seem, stay focused, stay positive, and continue building the life you truly deserve. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay motivated and goodbye.